A few hours ago, the Supreme Court of the United States Federal Court found that Donald Trump can be sued for the events of the Capitol Hill. You remember in his last days, there was the mob that was incited by him, and they went to the Capitol Hill and ransacked it. So a few hours ago, the Supreme Court of the United States said that Donald Trump cannot cite presidential immunity for what happened on that fateful day. Donald Trump had argued that when the people attacked the Capitol Hill, he was the President of the United States of America, and so he was immune from prosecution. But the Supreme Court found that he is not immune, and so they have given a go-ahead for him to be prosecuted. And he reacted by saying that this will open a floodgate of future presidents. If you are president of, say, this side of the political leanings, if the next president is from the other side, the next president may lead you into being prosecuted. And he was saying that once someone is a president, he is immune from prosecution. He is wrong. When America attained independence, during the George Washington time, the president was an imperial president above the law. But then it was not even imaginable at that time that a president could be impeached. But in the history of the American presidency, impeachment has come to 2 presidents. I'll start with the recent one before I go to the main topic of today, because the main topic of today is Watergate. And Watergate is the first time when impeachment was done to a president. But since it is long, I'll start with the recent one, which is short. President Bill Clinton was impeached by the Senate because of his wrongdoing as a president. What is impeachment? Impeachment is a political trial inside the upper house or the Senate. I'm saying impeachment is a political trial. Trial under Judicial Service Commission is supposed to be based on 2 things and 2 things alone. It is supposed to be based on the laws, the statutes, and the evidence given. Just that, nothing else. What is written in the Grey Book and the evidence that is presented, only that. But impeachment has a political connotation. What I mean is, if you follow the impeachment of Bill Clinton, which I may carry it on another tape in the near future, the impeachment, all the charges were found, fairly he was found to be guilty. But because the political party that he belonged to, which is Democratic, it came to each and every senator to pass his or her verdict, and the verdicts came as per the political party. So the only thing that saved Bill Clinton was that even though the leanings and the facts and everything showed that he was guilty, but his political party had many senators who decided to vote for him. That is what the difference between a judicial trial and a political trial. A political trial is what they call impeachment. And the first time that happened, impeachment was in during the time of President Richard Nixon of the Watergate scandal. He reached a time when the facts were so obvious that even the Republican, he was a Republican, the Republican senators appeared as though they would vote against him. So to forestall an impeachment, he resigned before he was impeached. And what happened? When he resigned, as we will see, the next president, who was Gerald Ford was his vice president, and as per the constitution of that country, when he resigned, Gerald Ford was made the president. In another tape, I've just remembered something. I'll tell you how Gerald Ford ended up being the president of the United States without appearing on a ballot paper. But today, I'm only concentrating on Watergate. On 17th June 1972, there was a break-in into Democratic National Committee headquarters in a building called Watergate. 5 people the 5 burglars were found with money, cash money, which had come from Nixon's re-election committee. If I have to compare that with the Kenyan scenario, even though quite a number of my viewers are from across Africa, it is like we are going to have an election. No, we have just had an election where the president has been re-elected. And when he has been re-elected, then it has been found that the opposition party headquarters, for example, Orange House, it is found that some 5 burglars entered into Orange House and broke into that to go and steal the minutes and manifesto and everything that the opposition was planning. So that when you have the arrangements and whatever, the information, then you can know how to counter that opposition. When I mentioned Orange, I only mentioned for Kenyans to understand. It is like the government, when they are going for re-election, and then they go to an opposition's head office and then break into the place and steal the literature for their campaign. Now, the opposition, which was the Democratic Party, was stationed in Watergate. I nearly said Westgate because of Nairobi, but at Watergate building. When those 5 people were arrested, they were found with money from Nixon's re-election headquarters. So the question came, did the president approve for the burglary? Or did the president play any part in the breaking into Watergate? Now, what sold Nixon was that slightly I think it is, if I'm not wrong, it is Nixon who had started a system that is there even today, that when the president is holding any meeting in the Oval Office, there is a tape there. There is a tape there that he plays it every meeting. The only thing that he does not tape is when maybe he's doing his paperwork and whatever, and you cannot tape something that someone is signing or reading files or anything. But any meeting that happens in the Oval Office, it is taped by the president. And again, when the president is about to go and hand over power, usually he records himself in that tape. In the last moments, he records it, and when he switches off, he goes into the vehicle and goes to hand over to the new president. So there is a tape there that usually records the audio of all meetings that are there. Maybe even when he wants to tell the tea girl to go and bring tea, he has to switch out. Any conversation in Oval Office has to be recorded in the tape. So, when the Congress, and by Congress I mean, in Kenya we call it Parliament, but in America they call it Congress. The two houses, the Senate and the Congress, they are both called Congress. Just like in Kenya, the Senate and the National Assembly are both called the Parliament. So the Congress wanted to go and listen to those tapes, but Nixon refused. It was taken to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court ordered that the president produces those tapes. And then when the tapes were replayed, it was found that Nixon had several meetings in the Oval House, in the Oval Office, where they had discussed extensively that issue. They had discussed on how the Democratic National Committee offices at Watergate had to be broken into, and even when it was broken into, they had discussed on how those 5 burglars would be assisted and how the court would circumvent the justice. So the Supreme ordered that, and the Congress went and got the tapes, and so it was decided. It was decided by the House Judiciary Committee that Richard Nixon, be charged with 3 offenses for impeachment. The first one was obstruction of justice. You know, when they wanted to go and get the tapes, he was refusing and whatever, so he was obstructing them. 2, he was charged with abuse of office. It was beneath the office of the president to encourage burglars. So that is the second charge of abuse of office. And the third charge was he was charged with contempt of Congress. That is, in Kenya we can say contempt of Parliament. So they decided, as I said, they had decided now to go into full trial. He was not convinced. He was not convinced that he would win the case. So he resigned on 9th August 1974. He resigned as the president. And his vice president, Gerald Ford, pardoned him on 8th September 1974. So that is the what were they called? Watergate scandal. Since I had promised that I'll tell you how Gerald Ford became the president without appearing on the ballot paper, it is like this. When Nixon went for re-election, as the president of the United States, he had a running mate whom I request you to check on the comment section, because either me or one of the readers would remember the name of the vice president. This vice president stayed for a short time, and the seat became vacant. It became vacant, and according to the American Constitution, the president had to select any other person as the vice president. So he selected Gerald Ford to be the vice president, and later he resigned, and the vice president, being Gerald Ford, ended up being as the president. Gerald Ford is the only American who ended up as the president without his name appearing on the ballot paper. What happened? The next time they had an election, he lost it to Jimmy Carter. Thank you.